The NFLandU Podcast. Welcome to the NFLandU Podcast on Tuesday, September 17th, just a bit before 1 Eastern Time. I'm your host, Hayden Vassar, and wow, what a crazy couple days it's been in the NFL. We've got a literal metric ton of stuff to get to and talk about today. This podcast might run a little long. I know we've been doing hour-long shows. We might go a bit longer than that today. We've got so much to talk about because the NFL news cycle decides that it not only can't stop, but it won't stop. Last time we talked was last Friday morning, and a lot happened. So today we're gonna review the rest of week 2, all the games that happened Sunday and Monday night. And then at the end of the show, we're going to do a Thursday night preview for Titans and Jags, and then we'll sign off. But we're going to do it a bit differently this time around. Normally we go through the games and recap everything and then talk about the news for each team in the recap. We're also going to throw in a little caveat this week. I'm going to be telling you which team should be mashing the panic button and which one shouldn't be. So when we get to a team that I think should be hitting the panic button, we'll talk about it. So, yeah, it's our first themed episode. Yay! So we're going to go through everything from week 2 and all the news that's happened in the last few days because it's been a lot. But before we get into the review, I want to take a quick second to talk about the Carolina Panthers. I wasn't going to talk about the Panthers today because they played on Thursday night and we already recapped that game. But there's some breaking news coming out in the last hour and a half about them. It came out that Cam Newton did not attend practice today. He apparently re-aggravated an ankle injury and Thursday night's 20-14 loss to Tampa Bay. And his status for week 3 against, I think it's the Cardinals. Anyway, his status for week 3 is right now up in the air. They don't know if Cam Newton's going to play or not. And it's just another name added to the long list of quarterbacks since Sunday who are missing time in the NFL. After last Thursday night's game, it was heavily speculated by everybody that Cam Newton is hurt and it's impacting his play. The Panthers wouldn't confirm that, but now it's official. It's apparently an ankle injury, an injury he suffered I think towards around the beginning of August, if I remember correctly, and it just lingered and lingered. And they said he was good to go for week 1, and now we're going into week 3, and he might miss time. And it's sad because when Cam Newton is healthy and playing great, he is one of the most dynamic players the NFL has had the last 20 years. He is a truly special athlete, and it's just a real shame what's been happening to quarterbacks the last few days. They're dropping like flies, man. It's crazy. So we'll keep an eye on that. I believe the backup in Carolina is Kyle Allen. Now, if any of you pay attention to college football, Kyle Allen used to play college football with the Cardinals' current quarterback, Kyler Murray. So that might be something interesting to watch if Cam Newton really can't go this Sunday. But once again, as of right now, Cam Newton's status for Week 3 up in the air. We'll probably know more Friday when we record the Week 3 preview podcast. But until then, his status is up in the air. All right, and then one last piece of news. If you were paying attention to last week's show, I did predictions for every single game, and it was a bit closer than Week 1. We went 9-7 overall, still have a over 500 record. So that's pretty good. So once again, we'll be keeping track of that throughout the season. Just fun little thing. Hopefully we stay above 500 because it would look really bad if we dip below 500 by the end of the year. It doesn't reflect good. All right, anyway, we're going to move on to the first game. So we're going to go in the same order we did during the preview show, which means first up, 49ers at Bengals. The 49ers win this game 41-17, and the 49ers are 2-0 for the first time since 2012. If you remember the 2012 season, they were being coached by Jim Harbaugh, and they went to the Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick. So, yeah, 49ers are looking good so far. Their defense looks impressive. They're forcing turnovers and getting sacks. What's really impressive is they've gone on the road the first 2 weeks and won in an impressive fashion. They beat Tampa Bay in week 1, and then they stayed in Ohio. They didn't even come back to California. They stayed in Ohio to train for the week, and then they just blew the doors off the Bengals. I mean, this was the 49ers game from the get-go. And the Bengals dropped to 1-1 as a result. I was just stunned watching this, because if you'd been listening to the podcast so far, you know that I was high up on the Bengals after their week 1 performance, and I wanted to see them try to string it together. But maybe that week 1 was just a mirage kind of thing for the Bengals, because they came out and they looked pretty flat. It was all 49ers. Jimmy G was making some solid throws. The running game was absolutely phenomenal. San Fran had over 200 rushing yards. In fact, they had 259 total rushing yards with their 3 running backs. They're going running back by committee, and all those dudes are chipping in right now. Matt Breida had the best day out of the running backs. He went 12 rushes for 121 yards. Jimmy G's final stat line, 17 out of 25 for 297 yards and 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. And man, the 49ers, talk about a surprise start. I've been under the opinion that the 49ers just didn't have enough talent the last few years to really compete. But Kyle Shanahan's system is working phenomenally right now, and he's made comments lately that Jimmy G is only going to get better as the season goes on, and if he keeps improving on this, the 49ers can be serious. With the Saints taking a big step back with Drew Brees being hurt, there is a current power vacuum in the NFC. So anybody that's serious about competing needs to step up right now. And the 49ers could seriously be 3-0 after week 3. They're facing the Steelers this weekend. They don't have Ben Roethlisberger. The 49ers could seriously be 3-0. That defense looks stout against a quarterback who's going to be making his first start. I want to see more from the offense, because they're not going to have 259 rushing yards per game. But the 49ers are looking good. I'm really impressed by that defense. They're making plays all over the place, once again forcing turnovers. And I'm impressed by the 49ers. I'm impressed by their victories. They haven't been playing great teams, but they've been doing it on the road, which is really great. You always teams look better at home, but when you can go on the road and win, no matter how ugly it is or in what fashion, it really helps you in the long run. In this game alone, I think, San Francisco had 4 sacks on Andy Dalton, who didn't have a good day. He went 26 of 42 for 311 and 2 touchdowns and 1 pick. Most of that came in garbage time when the game was already out of hand. And the Bengals kind of resembled the team that we kind of thought they would be going into this year, just kind of flat and not doing a whole lot. It was really good to see John Ross have another 100-yard receiving day. He went 4 catches for 112, 1 touchdown. And Tyler Boyd, another Cincy wide receiver, went 10 catches for 122 yards. But once again, most of that really came when the game was already way out of hand for the Bengals, and all they could do was throw to try to catch up. Like we just raved for how good are the 49ers, we're going to find out, more as they play more talented teams. But what are the Bengals? Are the Bengals just a week-to-week team? Or have we already seen them peak in week 1? And now we're just seeing what's going to be happening the rest of the year. The Bengals, defense was supposed to be good. They just looked flat. They got talent. I mean, John Ross is a good receiver. Tyler Boyd's a very exceptional complementary piece. And we know A.J. Green's going to come back to complement that offense. It's just, what are the Bengals right now? I know Joe Mixon was up in the air whether he would play or not, and he got cleared right before the game. And I think he had 10 rushes for 23 yards. It was a really abysmal day, even though they were behind big. So they have to get more production out of him, and hopefully he gets healthy soon. But right now, I just don't know what the Bengals are. But I have a more positive opinion of what the 49ers are trying to be. They seem to have a solid defense, and they're starting out 2-0, and they could be 3-0. And that NFC West is looking very interesting right now. You got the Rams at 2-0, you got the 49ers at 2-0. and you got one other team at 2-0, and I always forget the divisions. Seahawks 2-0, yeah. You got 3 2-0 teams in one division, and then the Cardinals way in the back. So, once again, 49ers win this one 41-17. 49ers move on to 2-0. Oh, and one last bit of note. This one's more of a concern for the 49ers. Their offensive lineman, Joe Stanley, broken fibula late in this game. They said 6 to 8 week recovery time, so he's going to be out for a significant amount of time. We'll see how that impacts the 49ers offense going forward. All right, moving on to the next game. Bills at Giants. We're going to spend a lot of time on this one. Bills win this one 28-14. Bills move to 2-0. Giants fall to 0-2. I'm really buying into the Buffalo Bills right now. I'm buying in. Their defense is legit. They forced 2 turnovers so far. They forced 2 turnovers in this game, 5 so far in the season, and they're just a really stingy, hard-nosed defense. If Josh Allen and that wide receiver core can continue to really step it up and keep getting better as the weeks go on, that Buffalo Bill team, they can be serious in the AFC. With teams falling off, like the Jets are now completely out of any serious competition. The Steelers are legitimately out of competition now, and teams are just dropping off. And if the Buffalo Bills can keep this up, they could be a playoff contender. Maybe not, they won't win their division by any means, but they could be in contention for a wild card. I could see that right now. Bills are looking interesting. This game, the Buffalo Bills jumped out to a really early advantage. Josh Allen went 19 of 30 for 253 yards, threw 1 touchdown, got sacked 3 times. But his rushing attempts, he had 7 rushes for 21 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. We mentioned that last week in the preview show of how that could fool the Giants' defense. Keeping it on the ground, Frank Gore, the ageless Frank Gore for the Bills, went 19 rushes for 68 yards and a touchdown. And Cole Beasley, who knows the Giants pretty well from his years in Dallas, had 4 catches for 83 yards. And it was just mostly Bills. Saquon Barkley had an early touchdown run for the Giants that got him a touchdown, but after that it was just long stints, long drives of the Giants offense not doing anything until the fourth quarter when Eli got him a touchdown. And the Giants just felt dead offensively. I was watching bits and pieces of this game, and Eli didn't help his cause. And I know in hindsight, because it's Tuesday morning and it's come out that Eli's going to be benched for rookie Daniel Jones, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But the offense just looked dead. Bills had 3 rushing touchdowns, and the main thing that's holding the Giants back right now is their defense. Their defense is atrocious right now. If you are playing against the Giants' defense, you're going to have a field day. I just hate to say it. You're going to. Saquon had a much better day than he did in Week 1. He had 18 rushes for 107 yards, 3 touchdowns. And he had 3 catches for 28 yards. So he got a bit more involved as compared to last week when he only had 15 touches. This week he had 21. So that's always good to see. Manning's final stat line, he went 26 of 45 for 250 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 1 sack. Eli didn't help his cause. But not all the problems for the Giants can be blamed on Eli Manning. Is he hindering the Giants? To a certain extent, yes. He doesn't throw the ball downfield anymore, and he's missing throws. Yes, he's hindering the Giants, but the Giants have more problems than just Eli Manning. But the fact that Eli isn't, winning games like he used to is a problem. And yes, that deserves fair criticism. Here's a stat line for you. Giants are 0-2 for the sixth time in the last 7 seasons. That is not good. Since the last time the Giants made the playoffs in 2014, when they lost in the opening round to the Green Bay Packers, remember the boat picture with Odell? Yeah, remember all that? The Giants have gone 0-26 since then. That is not good. It's not. And yes, a fair amount of that blame can be placed on Eli Manning, but not all of it is Eli's fault. It's not. So once again, Bills win this one, and I'm really buying into the Bills, but the bigger story here is, once again, Daniel Jones is going to be the starter for the New York Giants. Eli Manning's done in New York. I'm not saying he's going to retire, but once you hand it off to the rookie that you draft number 6 overall in the first round, it's over. It's a wrap. Eli's not getting this job back, barring a catastrophic injury. Eli's not getting this job back. This is Daniel Jones' team now. So it's been 15 years for Eli Manning in New York. Career record of 116 to 116 for wins, which sounds about right for Eli Manning. He's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't hate Eli Manning. It's just in regular season games, he doesn't always look the best. But in terms of a leader, a guy off the field, the kind of class that he shows for his entire career, there's nobody, and I mean nobody, like Eli Manning. He'll stand in that locker every Monday after a game, even if the Giants get blown out 38-3, and answer questions from the media every single Monday for his entire career. You cannot really describe a better quarterback than Eli Manning in terms of how he's handled all of this. Just so much class amongst so much uncertainty and angst. Eli Manning's been the perfect soldier for New York. He really has been. Never causes problems, never says anything wrong. In a media market that's as volatile and ruthless as New York, a quiet, kind of laid-back Eli Manning, he flourished there. They love Eli Manning in New York, even with all the losses the last couple of years. But the point remains, you have to win in this league. You have to, or else you're going to lose your job. And Eli didn't win, and once again, not all of that is on him. But now they're going to try the rookie. And yes, is Daniel Jones going to provide a spark for this offense? Yes, he's going to be able to push the ball downfield more. We saw that in the preseason. It was obvious that Daniel Jones was the better quarterback. But you don't want to start him right now. You're starting him. You announce him as a starter on Tuesday as you go on the road to play Tampa Bay. Todd Bowles is going to blitz this kid into oblivion. He is going to throw the entire kitchen sink at Daniel Jones. And then you have games coming up against the Minnesota Vikings, another great defense. Oh, and then you have the New England Patriots in like 3 weeks on a Thursday night game. You're asking for trouble starting a rookie right now. Your defense is awful. Daniel Jones isn't going to fix that. He's not going to fix the fact that you have 2 wide receivers out, one due to suspension in Golden Tate and the other in concussion protocol in Sterling Shepard. I'm just trying to understand the Giants' motives here. Yes, we all knew this was coming. It was never going to be easy. But I'm just confused at the timing of this. Why not wait until after the Thursday night game against New England when you get past the really rough part of the schedule and then let the kid go out and play? You're literally throwing him into the lion's den right now and telling him to sink or swim. And it's his job now. Eli's not getting this job back. That's just the way this works. This is probably the last we've seen of Eli in New York. I don't think this is the last we're going to see of him in the NFL. He has said that he wants to continue playing. Not today. He said it in the past. And he is in a contract year right now. So at the end of the year, you could see Eli Manning going to a different team. And if you look around the NFL, a lot of teams could really use a quarterback. So once again, Bills win this one, 28-14, go to 2-0. Bills are looking really good right now. That defense is impressive. Giants 0-2. Giants bench Eli Manning. Two-time Super Bowl champion and future Hall of Famer Eli Manning for rookie Daniel Jones going into Week 3. All right, moving on. Cardinals at Ravens. Ravens win this one, 23-17. Improved to 2-0. Cardinals fall to 0-1-1 because of the tie last week. Lamar Jackson and this Ravens team are legit. They are legit, and it looks like the AFC North is theirs to lose. Their offense is incredible. They're spreading the ball out to everybody. They're throwing it downfield at alarming rates if you're a defensive team. And it's incredible. Lamar Jackson, let me look at his stats right here. Get this. Lamar Jackson went 24 of 37 for 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then he had 16 rush attempts for 120 yards. Lamar Jackson is lighting the NFL on fire right now. This kid can flat out play the quarterback position. He can throw it deep, and he can run it too. And it truly makes it stunning to watch, because now the running game isn't the primary function like it was last season for the Ravens. Now it's a complementary thing. Because now everybody in the NFL is now painfully aware Lamar Jackson can throw the ball deep. He has already thrown 7 passing touchdowns this season. He had 6 passing touchdowns all of last season. He is on a tear right now, and NFL teams should be very afraid. This game, it was Ravens for the most part, but a lot like last season, a lot like last week for Arizona, even though the Ravens were up big for most of the game, it was never really out of hand for the Cardinals. They were always right there, like within scoring distance. Arizona kicked a field goal in each of the first 3 quarters, so they had only scored 9 points going into the fourth quarter. But once the fourth quarter started, Kyler Murray just kind of flipped a switch and got the Cardinals into the end zone. So I have to ask, what are the Cardinals right now? Are they a team that only really starts to let it fly when the fourth quarter starts? I mean, it was nice to see that. The Cardinals had better offensive numbers than they did last week when they only had 50 total passing yards by the end of halftime. That was nice to see, but it still wasn't enough. Going back to the Ravens offense, the Ravens have the number 1 total offense in the league right now, averaging 541.5 yards per game. But even though they're still putting up these numbers, it has been against lesser competition. They had 650 total yards against the Dolphins, and now they beat up on a kind of weird Cardinals team. So you want to see what it's going to look like against a bit of a better teams, but the Ravens are looking dangerous, and they look like they're the absolute front runner to win the AFC North right now, with Pittsburgh now out of the picture. Cincinnati kind of doesn't know what they're doing, and the Browns can't seem to put together a complete game so far. But going back to the Cardinals for a second, Kyler Murray, he's going to make them interesting to watch, which when we did the first show on this podcast, we said that would be a big win for the Cardinals team this year. Just make your team watchable. And so far, he's made them that. Even if it's only in the fourth quarter when they seem to try. Kyler Murray's final stat line, he went 25 of 40 for 349 yards and 3 sacks. Kirk, oh God, I'm forgetting his last name because I didn't write it. Oh, it's Christian Kirk, my bad. Christian Kirk, their wide receiver, went six catches for 114 yards. And Larry Legend Fitzgerald went 5 catches for 104 yards. So it's not like these Cardinals aren't putting up numbers. It's just they can't seem to find the end zone a whole lot until the fourth quarter rolls around for some odd reason. It's just the darndest thing. They did it last week against the Lions, and now they're doing it this week against the Ravens. So when week 3 rolls around, it'll be interesting to see if the Cardinals can put forward some offensive production in the early quarters. Once again, I'm not quite sure what to make of the Cardinals. I'm not quite sure. They're interesting. I'll give them that. They're interesting, and that's all I really asked for. So once again, Ravens win this one 23-17. Ravens go to 2-0. Cardinals go to 0-1-1. Ravens are winning that AFC North. unless the Browns do something crazy late in the season. I think the Ravens, once again, it's their division to lose. Moving on to the Chargers at the Lions. Wow, talk about a gut check win for the Lions. Lions win this one 13-10. Lions move to 1-0-1 because of the tie with the Cardinals last week. Chargers fall to 1-1. And once again, wow, what a gut check win for the Lions. Hey, 2 weeks into the season, Lions are undefeated, technically. Technically they are. Didn't think I'd be saying that. This was a very sloppy, mistake-filled game. There were four turnovers from both teams combined. There were combined 4 missed kicks by both kickers. Just a terrible day for kickers in the NFL. But the Lions were able to take the lead halfway through the first quarter when Matthew Stafford hits their number 1 wide receiver, Kenny Golladay, for a 31-yard touchdown to take the lead. If you do not know his name by now, you should. Kenny Golladay is a playmaker in Detroit. That young man knows how to play. And not enough people really know his name. Kenny Golladay is a flat-out playmaker for the Lions. And that clutch touchdown drive by Matthew Stafford and Kenny Golladay really proved that. But then later in the game, as time's winding down, Rivers gets the Chargers into field goal range. And the entire game, Keenan Allen is beating the heck out of Darius Slay. He's been getting the better of him all game long. And remember, the Chargers are in field goal range. So Rivers decides to force a ball to Keenan Allen in the end zone, and it gets picked off by Darius Slay. And the Lions win as a result. And early when I really watched the replay, I was wondering, why does Phillip Rivers throw that ball? They're in field goal range. There's no reason to really force it right there. But once again, the kicking issues for both teams, you got to wonder if that played into it, if the Chargers felt like they had to go for it. Because remember, their starting kicker hasn't played so far this year, so they've been basically using a backup, their punter, to kick. And he shanked a couple in this game. So you have to wonder if that factored into it. This is the second week in a row that Rivers has thrown a back-breaking fourth-quarter interception. Last week he did it against the Colts, and it set up a game-tying touchdown drive for the Colts to send that game to overtime. But this week when he did it, it cost the Chargers the game. And that was just stunning. The Lions' defense played phenomenally in this game. They were able to limit big plays and limit runs. Outside of the lone Chargers touchdown in the first quarter, they were able to really shut the Chargers down offensively. And the Lions were able to take advantage of that. I'm still curious about the Lions' running game. Last week I said that they didn't really do much with the running game. Even though they were in a close game, they still kept trying to run the ball, but they weren't getting a lot of production from the running game. I know their running back, Johnson, he had a much better day, mainly because he was able to get more receiving yards. But the running game for Detroit really needs to step up, because that team is supposed to be built around the run and defense. That's just their calling card. The NFC North is defensive heavy. I think we can all agree at this point. Vikings, Packers, Bears, Lions, those teams are going to play solid defense. And they're probably not going to put up a bunch of yards offensively, but they're going to play solid defense. I'm just curious as to what's going to happen with the Chargers. You can't really blame the game on Melvin Gordon being gone, because Austin Eckler did okay. He's been doing good in reserve, from Melvin Gordon being gone. So you can't really blame it on that. Would it help that Melvin Gordon was there? Yeah, it would help. The Chargers are just banged up everywhere right now. Let's see here. Yeah, another injury happened for the Chargers. Chargers safety Adrian Phillips broke his forearm in the third quarter. Another starter out for this Chargers team. It's just Mike Williams, their number 2 wide receiver, was talked about not being able to play in this game until kickoff. The Chargers are hurt everywhere right now. And they really need some help. So if they had Melvin Gordon right now, it would be a big help. But once again, I still don't think they need him to win. Looking at the final stats, Phillip Rivers went 21 of 36 for 293 yards, 1 pick, and 1 sack. While Stafford went 22 of 30 for 245 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 sacks. As we mentioned, Austin Eckler, he went 17 rushes, 66 yards, and a touchdown, the Chargers running back. And he had 6 receptions for 67 yards. That's really his bread and butter, more of a pass-catching running back than a straight running back. And then Keenan Allen, how we talked about, he was beating Darius Slay for most of the game. He had 8 receptions for 98 yards, which might explain why Phillip Rivers tried to force the ball, because he thought Keenan Allen could beat him. And then lastly, Kenny Golladay, remember, playmaker, 8 receptions, 117 yards, and a touchdown. Lions might be interesting. Defensive heavy. If that defense can continue to play that well, Lions could be scary. But remember, this might just be one of those games like last season for the Lions, where, like when they beat the Patriots last year and then ended up winning 6 games. That could have just been what this was. Remains to be seen. Like I said, Lions need more of a running game, and Chargers need to get healthy. That's what the Chargers really need right now. Once again, Lions win this one 13-10. Lions move 1-0-1, undefeated. Hey, look out, Lions. Chargers fall to 1-1. All right, moving on. Colts at Titans. Oh boy, this game was wild. Before this game started, it was the funniest thing of the weekend. Before the game started, one of Tennessee's little pyro things that they have on the field when the team runs out caught fire and set the field on fire. Yeah, there's video of it on the internet. It was quite funny and very ominous. And it kind of foretold what would happen to the Titans that day. Colts win this one 19-17. Colts move on to 1-1. Titans fall to 1-1. It was just more of a defensive-heavy game in this one between two defenses that are looking to shape up quite nice so far early in the season. Both have 8 sacks total on the year, and they each got a couple in this game. Marcus Mariota got sacked 4 times in this game. Jacoby Brissett, the Colts quarterback, got sacked 3 times. But the Titans... I warned you guys about this. I warned this on the last podcast. Everybody was really high up on the Titans after the big win in Cleveland. And I said, well, give them a second. Let them be consistent with it. And I said, this would be the type of game that the Titans would drop. A home game against a division rival. This is usually the game that the Titans drop. And they did. They lost it. In the final minutes, Jacoby Brissett leads another clutch fourth quarter touchdown drive to T.Y. Hilton to go up and take the lead. Marcus Mariota takes over for the Titans, and they just can't get into field goal range. They just can't. And the Titans lose as a result. Marcus Mariota went 19 of 28 for 154 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 sacks, as I already mentioned. Jacoby Brissett didn't do much better. It was just a really, really ugly day for offenses in this game and a couple others. Jacoby Brissett, on the other hand, went for 17 of 28 for 146 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, and 3 sacks. I think it's obvious if you're watching this Colts team, Frank Reich, the head coach, he believes in Jacoby Brissett. You know, it's one thing when he says it in the offseason right after Andrew Luck retires. It's another thing to really just run the same game plan that you would have run with Andrew Luck. I think with a couple minutes left in the fourth quarter, the Colts are lining up to go for it on like 4th and 2 or 4th and 3 with Jacoby right at around midfield. And the announcers are saying, oh, they're just going to try and draw him offside. And I'm sitting there watching it like, no, go for it. If you go for it here, you can really put the screws to the Titans. And then Frank Reich goes for it, and they get it. And I'm sitting there watching that. I'm like, that is a play that Frank Reich and the Colts would have run last year with Andrew Luck. And they just did it with Jacoby Brissett. Frank Reich believes in Jacoby, flat out. They're running the exact same play. Is Jacoby Brissett the same as Andrew Luck? No, he's not. Not even close. But he knows the system well enough that he can execute it like Frank Reich wants to. Jacoby Brissett is giving the Titans a chance. He's giving them a chance every week to win games. And that is what you want from a backup quarterback. He gives your team a chance. On the other hand, with the Titans, Marcus Mariota and the Titans' offense is so week to week. One week they're going to score a bunch of points. The next week they can barely get 150 passing yards. Their offense is so heavily reliant on Derrick Henry that if you stop him, that offense comes to a dead halt. Speaking of Derrick Henry, his final stat line, he went 15 of 81 for 1 touchdown and he fumbled once. That Titans defense is legitimate. Their front defensive line is scary and it's good. And teams should be afraid of that. Teams are not afraid of this offense. If you stop Derrick Henry and you force them to throw the ball with Marcus Mariota, you have a very high likelihood of winning this game. The Titans need to come to terms with if you're going to keep Marcus Mariota, because this is what he's been his entire career. This is what the Titans have been these last couple years. Week to week, you just don't know what you're going to get. And that's why they've kind of stayed irrelevant. I don't know what the Titans are going to do. We're going to talk about them a bit more later during the Thursday night football preview with Jacksonville. But I like their defense. I just don't like their offense. One more note about this game. Adam Vinatieri missed a couple more kicks in this game for the Colts. And after the game, he gave the media a very cryptic message saying he was going to have a press conference on Monday. He wouldn't say what it was about. Well, Monday came and went, and everybody was assuming the future Hall of Famer was going to retire. I was one of them. I was writing the script for this podcast, assuming Adam Vinatieri was going to retire, and then the news broke that Frank Reich apparently was able to convince Adam Vinatieri to stay on as the kicker, and he's going to continue playing, which is a bit stunning. I really thought he was going to hang it up. So far, Adam Vinatieri has gone, I think it's 2 for 5 on all kicks so far this season. Just a horrifically rough start for the 24-year-old veteran. And he's going to be there for week 3. So you just hope he can pull it together. But if he has another rough game, his time in Indianapolis may be coming to an end. Once again, Colts win this one, go 1-1. Titans fall to 1-1. Moving on to, well, you know what? Staying in the AFC South. Staying in the AFC South, but just going to a different game. Jags at Texans. Texans win this one 13-12, go to 1-1. Jacksonville loses, falls to 0-2. And this was probably the ugliest game of the weekend. I think we can all agree. Final score of 13-12. It wasn't pretty. It was not pretty. Another game of offenses not having a good day. Gardner Minshew, who was having a really rough day for the most part, scored a touchdown very late in the fourth quarter to pull within 1 point. And Doug Marrone, the Jacksonville head coach, decides we're going to go for 2. And I absolutely love that decision. I love it when coaches are aggressive and go for the win. I hate conservatism in football. I love the call to go for 2. I do not like the play call because he decided to just hand it off to Leonard Fournette, who really has not done much lately in Jacksonville. And the Jaguars lose a result because he gets stuffed right at the goal line. Sorry. Once again, the Jags could have won that game, but I just don't like the call to Leonard Fournette in the goal line. I just don't like it. It was not a good call. Right decision to go for it, though. Deshaun Watson scored the lone touchdown for the Texans late in the it was early in the fourth quarter with a rushing touchdown, which shows how dynamic Deshaun Watson is, using his legs to get in there and give the Texans their lone offensive touchdown. But here's a note for Texans fans that you should be worried about. And you know what? If in Texas, there's 2 panic buttons in this game, and one for each team. Houston should be hitting the panic button because Deshaun Watson has been sacked 10 times. 10 times so far this season. He is on pace to be sacked 70 times this season. He led the league in being sacked last year, and he's probably going to lead it again this year. If I'm Texans fans, I would be mashing the panic button. Because this quarterback might have a very short career. And that's sad because Deshaun Watson is a tremendous athlete, but that offensive line is a liability, and it is going to cost Houston games. Looking at Jacksonville, though, Jacksonville just looks like their entire bus is falling apart. Watching the game, there was a moment where Jalen Ramsey, their star defensive player, is coming off the field and he's heated. And he yells at Doug Marrone, their head coach, and they start getting into it. They start yelling at each other, and they get separated. Ramsey goes over to the bench. Doug Marrone follows him and gets in his face and starts yelling at him. Has to be restrained by players and pulled away. And then late Monday night, it comes out that Jalen Ramsey has requested to be traded. He's upset how he's being used in the defense. He wants to play more man coverage. And he's apparently upset about the Doug Marrone situation. Jalen Ramsey is a tremendous player in this league. He's got a bit of an attitude. I liked that at first, but now it's gotten old. So we're going to keep an eye on that in Jacksonville, but it just seems like their wheels are falling off the bus. You got Jalen Ramsey wanting out. Leonard Fournette is still not producing. I know we mentioned it on last week's Friday show, but he has gone since the 2017 divisional round against Pittsburgh was his last 100-yard rushing game. I think he had like 40 yards in this game. That's not good. That's really not good. I think so far Jacksonville is requesting at least a first-round pick for Jalen Ramsey. They're probably going to get a bit more. But man, it seems like the sky is falling in Jacksonville. They're 0-2. We'll see what happens Thursday night. We're going to talk about that a bit later when they play the Titans. But man, the wheels are falling off in Jacksonville. That AFC South is wide open. Anybody can win that game. Anybody can win that thing. Except maybe the Jags. They really just seem out of it right now. Gardner Minshew, the Jags quarterback, went 23 of 33 for 213 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 sacks. DJ Chark, the wide receiver in Jacksonville, they maybe have a playmaker in him. 7 catches, 55 yards, and a touchdown. Deshaun Watson, on the other hand, went 16 of 29 for 159 yards, 4 sacks. And Carlos Hyde, their running back, went 20 rushes for 90 yards. Like I said, it just was not a good offensive game for anybody. And we're just going to see where this goes because Jalen Ramsey wants out. And usually when a player says that, he might get it. Minkah Fitzpatrick said he wanted out like a week ago, and he got traded last night. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But once again, Texans win this one, 13-12, go to 1-1. Jacksonville falls to 0-2. Moving on to Pats at Dolphins. We aren't going to spend a ton of time on this game because it was just flat out ugly. But we are going to spend a lot of time talking about Antonio Brown. Pats win this one, 43-0. Pats move to 2-0. Dolphins fall to 0-2. Dolphins have been outscored 102-10 so far this season. It was a close game early, though. It was only 13-0 at the half for the Patriots, but Patriots had a 20-point fourth quarter, which really fluffed the score up. Dolphins are in full tank mode right now. They traded away Minkah Fitzpatrick, one of their last few good players last night, and it sounds like they're also shopping around running back Kenyon Drake. Miami's going in full tank mode, and the season's basically over, and they really might not win a game this season. Head coach Brian Flores said that Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to start Week 3 against Dallas, even though there were some rumblings that maybe Josh Rosen gets a start instead. Changing quarterbacks isn't going to fix the problem. That team is just bad. It's just bad. The Pats' defense is for real, though. They had 7 sacks in this game, 4 interceptions. I think it was 2 of each. I think they got... Oh, no, it was 1 interception from Fitzpatrick and then 3 from Josh Rosen. My bad. So like I said, we aren't going to talk too much about this game because I feel like I've trashed the Dolphins enough. Patriots are a good Super Bowl team, but I really want to talk about the Antonio Brown situation because it was a major storyline going into the game to see if he was going to even play, and he did. He got a touchdown. But remember, he's still being looked at. He's being sued for allegedly sexually assaulting a woman 3 separate times. But on Monday, amongst all the other news that was happening in the league, a Sports Illustrated article came out that accused him of a couple things, some that people had already known about, some that we didn't, including a new sexual misconduct allegation by another woman. And at this point, if you're the Patriots, you have to sit this guy down. You have to. It is inexcusable that you continue to let him play and be a focal point of your offense. It is just beyond inexcusable. The Patriots said that if they had known about the sexual assault allegations before they'd signed him, they wouldn't have signed him. I find that incredibly hard to believe, because they then found out about it and then featured him as a focal point of their offense the very next Sunday, and are probably going to start him again this coming Sunday despite the new allegation of sexual misconduct. There is no reason why he should be playing. There isn't, but the Patriots don't care. They just don't. They don't need him to win. They don't. But they're still going to play him. They don't care. It's just really messed up. And I really think the Patriots should sit him down. They should. Or the NFL should put him on the exempt list. Until we get to the bottom of all of this. I did really get on the NFL investigation practices last week when it was announced that they were investigating Brown, but somebody has to sit this guy down. Oh, I mean, what's it going to take? Do 10 women have to come forward before somebody says, hey, he probably shouldn't be playing? What's it going to take? It's just really messed up, and I just don't think it's right that he should be playing right now. It's just not. All right, moving on. We're going to talk Seahawks at Steelers, and this is where we're really going to get into the Minkah Fitzpatrick stuff and the Ben Roethlisberger stuff. So there's a lot to get to in just this one segment. Seahawks win this one, 28-26. Seahawks improved to 2-0. Hey, good for them. Steelers fall to 0-2. But the more important issue, Ben Roethlisberger, the Steelers quarterback, suffered a non-contact elbow injury in the second quarter. He has to get surgery. He is done for the year. And that was really the big news from this game. Seahawks were able to win this one because the Steelers were not able to stop them in the second half. Seattle scored 21 points in the second half en route to a win. But I am concerned about the Seattle offensive line. Russell Wilson has been sacked 8 times already this year. He got sacked 4 times in this game. And if we're going back to the days of Russell Wilson getting sacked and running for his life on every single play, that is not good for Seattle. That is very not good. But speaking of Wilson, he had a much better day passing as compared to last week. He went 29-35 for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. And he had 6 rushing attempts for 22 yards, which was big in the second half and really helped seal the game away. Rashad Penny, their running back, went 10 rushes for 62 yards and a touchdown. Mason Rudolph, the Steelers' backup quarterback, because remember they traded away Josh Dobbs to the Jags for a 5th-round pick. Rudolph went 12 of 19 for 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a sack. Vance McDonald was the big recipient of a lot of those. He caught 7 passes for 38 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was just more of a back-and-forth game with Seattle just keep trying to extend the lead and Pittsburgh just trying to keep Mason Rudolph in it. Mason Rudolph made some good throws. I'm going to be honest. He made some really good throws. Kid played at Oklahoma State, Big 12 football, so he knows how to throw a ball. But once again, it's different when you come in cold off the bench than when a team can prepare for you. I really don't know what to make of the Steelers right now. When I wrote this segment last night, I was going to try and sell the Steelers on tanking away the season to go get an heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger in this draft until the Steelers made the trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick last night, and they sent a first-round pick to Miami. Now, there were a bunch of other picks involved, but the main crux of it is they traded Minkah for a first-round pick. I really don't understand that trade. I really don't. I've had a couple hours to really sit and think about it. that's a trade you make when you're like a piece away from really competing. Do you really like Minkah Fitzpatrick more than you like Justin Herbert or Tua Tagovailoa, the star quarterbacks who should be in this draft? I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, Pittsburgh. You're not winning a lot of games with Mason Rudolph. You're just not. I hate to break it to you. I really do. Your offense did not look good the first week, and there has been talk that this elbow issue for Big Ben was bothering him then. I think it was Mason Rudolph who said after this game that Big Ben had trouble feeling his fingers at the end of the New England game, so that could explain the offensive performance, but there are a lot of questions about the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. Their defense, their offense. Their defense should get better with the Minkah Fitzpatrick addition, but I don't know about their offense. With Mason Rudolph calling the shots, James Conner sounds like he'll be good to go after leaving this game in the fourth quarter, but for the Steelers, I just don't know. I don't think they're winning the AFC North, and I don't think they're going to make a wild card. I just don't believe in them with Mason Rudolph. He could prove me wrong. He could absolutely prove me wrong. But I just don't see it. Once again, Seahawks win this one, go to 2-0. It was Pete Carroll's 68th birthday. He's 68, but he acts like a 25-year-old. I love Pete Carroll. I really do. He's a fun-loving head coach. And then once again, Big Ben out for the season. I know we're going to get Big Ben back because I know this isn't just going to knock him out. He's a lot tougher quarterback than that, but is Pittsburgh ever really going to think about getting the heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger? I mean, the man talks about retiring every offseason. So what better time than now to just have a 2-win season and go get his heir apparent, and then like 2 years from now you can start him. That's what I'm saying. That's what I was going to sell the Pittsburgh Steelers fan base on. And then they go out and trade for Fitzpatrick and then basically throw that all up in the air. Because the Steelers are probably not going to win more than 8 games this year with Mason Rudolph. They just probably aren't. And if I really had to put a stab at it, I think the odds of them having a top 10 pick are pretty high right now. But once again, Seahawks win this one. Steelers are in full panic mode. I think they should be in full panic mode right now. Moving on to Vikings at Packers. Packers win this one 21-16. Packers move to 2-0. Vikings fall to 1-1. Matt LaFleur, the Green Bay Packer head coach, is the first rookie Packer head coach to start 2-0 since Vince Lombardi. Yeah, how about that? Yeah, I know, right? Matt LaFleur is also the only rookie head coach so far this season to win a game. The rest of the rookie head coaches, if I remember correctly, are a combined 9-1. That's not good. Early on in this game, the Packers' offense looked like it was clicking on all cylinders. They scored 21 points in the first half, 14 of those in the first quarter. Shows how good they can really be when everything is working right. Aaron Rodgers was throwing absolute darts to open receivers, and the running game was being absolutely complimentary to everything Aaron Rodgers was doing, and I think that's what the Green Bay offense should be. I know Matt LaFleur wants to establish the run and all this, but when Aaron Rodgers has a helping running game, the Packers offense could go to new heights. And they have a solid defense. Mike Pettin, their defensive coordinator, absolutely knows what he's doing on the defensive side of the ball. The Packers, if their offense can really work out all the kinks in their system, they could be very scary. But it was like a Jekyll and Hyde performance from the Packers. Their offense started out great, and you're like, wow, this is what the Packers' offense should be like. And then, after they scored 21 points in the first half, nothing. Nothing the rest of the game. Not a single thing. So it was this weird Jekyll and Hyde kind of show from the Packers. But then on the other hand, you have the Vikings, who are not built to come from behind. They just aren't. So if you go up a couple touchdowns on this Vikings team, I think it might be a wrap. This Vikings team is strong-nosed defense and a running game. Even though they have playmakers at receiver and we know Kirk Cousins can sling it, they're just not built to come from behind. So when the Packers got up early, I knew it was a wrap. Now, Apparently, you can try and mount a comeback with a running game. I did not know that was possible, but Dalvin Cook says otherwise. He had a grand total of 20 rush attempts for 154 yards and a touchdown. I had a 75-yard massive touchdown run to get the Vikings back into this thing. But Kirk Cousins, the Vikings quarterback, he makes it hard to love him. He really does. I want to support Kirk, but man, there are times he just looks flat awful. In this game, he went 14 of 32 for 230 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 2 really bad picks, and 1 sack. I just don't... Like I said, I still think the Vikings are going to win the NFC North, but if this team has to come from behind a lot, they're not going to do that. They're just not. They are not built to do that. They're meant to be ahead in games and just run the ball out and destroy teams. That's what they're supposed to be. But looking at the Packers can come back in games. They have Aaron Rodgers. They got Devontae Adams. If they get down a score or two, they can dig out of it. But what this game should show you is that if the Packers get ahead early, they have the defense to strangle you out, and they have the running game to smash you into submission. Aaron Jones, their running back, 23 rushing attempts, 116 yards, and a touchdown. Green Bay has not had this good of a running game since Eddie Lacy's rookie year. That was years ago. Looking at the Packers offense, Aaron Rodgers went 22 of 34 for 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 sacks. And Devontae Adams caught 7 passes for 106 yards. Like I said, we got both sides of the coin for the Packers. They showed how good they can be. They also showed that they can drop off a bit at times. But as long as that running game stays complimentary and it's not the main focal point for the Packers offense, I think they can be scary. I think the Packers can be real scary. We know Rodgers can really take over a game at any point if he wanted to. Packers can be scary. Once again, Packers win this one 21-16. Pack move to 2-0. Vikings fall to 1-1. All right, last game in the 1 o'clock Eastern show. Cowboys at Washington. Cowboys win this one 31-21. Cowboys move to 2-0. Washington falls into the cellar with New York at 0-2. Cowboys started off very slow offensively. It looked like their offense got a bit more conservative than what it was last week. Dak Prescott throws a pick that bounced off his receiver's hand, and Washington took advantage. They scored a touchdown with Adrian Peterson, who moves in the 5th all-time in touchdowns ahead of Jim Brown. And that was what it was in the first quarter. It was just Dallas couldn't quite get it together offensively, a bit of a slow start. But then once the second quarter started, they started to piece it together, scored a couple touchdowns, and then the second half, they just let it fly. Big play after big play, especially on Josh Norman. There was a big run where he got stiff-armed by Dak Prescott. And watching this game, especially in the second half, when Dallas started taking over offensively, I thought, because Washington is supposed to be, their defense is the best part of their team. They got Josh Norman. He's a bit of a shell of his former self, but they have Norman. They have Landon Collins. And they had a couple guys on their defensive line who can make plays, but it's just they just seem out of it. I'm not quite sure what the exact problem is with Washington, but they just seem in a funk. I can't point to one thing and be like, that's the problem. I can't even point to a couple things and be like, that's the problem. I'm not quite sure what it is. It's just, the Washington just isn't good. They're just not. They didn't have a good day offensively. Case Keenum, the Washington quarterback, went 26 of 37 for 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a sack. McLaurin, their rookie wide receiver, went 5 catches, 62 yards, and a touchdown. On the other hand, Dak Prescott went 26 of 30 for 269 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, and 1 sack after that really, really slow start. Dak Prescott's flat out balling right now. He is balling. And I did get nervous at first because I thought we had ditched the conservatism when we fired Scott Linehan. But I really like the Cowboys offense right now. And the Cowboys could be 3-0 because they're playing Miami next week. And you know I don't have a high opinion of Miami. But the Cowboys offense is good right now. Elliott got more involved. 23 rushes for 111 yards and a touchdown. More than he got involved last week. But if you're going to be concerned about Dallas right now, injuries, because they had two key ones in this game. Michael Gallup, their number 2 wide receiver and the most targeted receiver so far this season by Dak Prescott. Michael Gallup out 2 to 4 weeks with arthroscopic knee surgery, and then the safety Xavier Woods out 4 to 6 weeks with an ankle injury. So, just as a space opens up at the top of the NFC with the Saints getting hurt, now the Cowboys are a bit hurt. So, but thankfully, Cowboys are going into a part of their schedule where they're playing some teams that are also banged up, like the Saints, like the Jets. So it'll be interesting to see what Dallas can look like without Michael Gallup and Xavier Woods. But once again, Cowboys win this one 31-26. Yes? Yeah, no, 31-21. Improve to 2-0. Redskins fall to 2-0. I mean 0-2. And the Redskins are just not good. There's the gigantic dumpster fire that is the Giants. Then slightly above that is the Washington football team. And then above that are the Eagles and Cowboys. I just don't know what's wrong with Washington right now. I really can't pinpoint to something, but I just know they're just not good. They're just not. Moving on to our next game, Chiefs at Raiders. Chiefs win this one 28-10. Bit of a weird start to this one. Raiders jump out to a 10-0 lead all the way through the first quarter. And you're thinking, oh, okay, maybe the Raiders are for real. Maybe the Raiders are for real. And then Patrick Mahomes said, no, they're not. Because in the second quarter, Patrick Mahomes went off. He did all of what I'm about to say in the second quarter. You ready for this? In the second quarter, Patrick Mahomes threw for 278 passing yards, which is just a couple shy of the all-time record held by Drew Brees for a single quarter. 278 passing yards and 4 touchdowns in the second quarter. Patrick Mahomes is on another level. There's great quarterbacks in this league, and then there's whatever Patrick Mahomes is. I don't think that man is human. I don't think he is. And if you watch those plays, he is just lighting people up. Robinson, the Chiefs wide receiver. Remember how I mentioned Sammy Watkins needed to show consistency? Well, he really didn't this week, and he went back to what he normally does. Has a big game, then a very low game after that. But Robinson stepped up for the Chiefs. Caught 6 passes, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kelsey had 7 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown. And this is just another case that the Chiefs are just going to put up points no matter who they play. They just embarrassed the Raider defense. And the Raiders shouldn't feel too bad about that because the Chiefs are going to do this to everybody. They just are. Speaking of the Raiders, Derek Carr became the Raiders' all-time passing leader after a 16-yard pass to Darren Waller in the second quarter, so that was good for Carr. Except for the part where he got sacked 3 times in the game. Speaking of Mahomes, he finished 30 of 44 for 443 yards and 4 touchdowns on the day. All of that came in the second half. All right, so all of the points in this game were scored in the first half. After that, it was just a bunch of punts and sacks in the second half and a lot of turnovers. That's all the second half was. There was nothing really happening in the second half. Derek Carr finished with 23 of 38 for 198 yards, 1 lone touchdown, 2 picks, 3 sacks. I really think the Raiders have a running back in Josh Jacobs, a nice grinded-out player for Gruden. Had a good old Gruden grinder, huh? Yeah. Went 12 rushes for 98 yards, and Tyrell Williams caught the lone touchdown for the Raiders. 5 catches, 46 yards, 1 touchdown, as I just mentioned. I don't know what the Raiders are. They really looked frisky, and they really looked into it early on, but just once Mahomes turned it on, it was over. So we're going to see what the Raiders look like next week. We know what the Chiefs are. We know what they are. They're good, and they're going to hang points on everybody. So it'll be interesting to see where the Raiders go from here. Are they still going to be this frisky team that can give other teams trouble and really grind out wins, or what the Raiders are going to be in their last year, and what is presumed to be their last year in Oakland? So once again, Chiefs win this one 28-10. Chiefs go to 2-0. Raiders fall 1-1. Moving on to probably the most controversial game of the weekend, Bears at Broncos. Bears win this one 16-14. Bears move on to 1-1. Broncos fall to 0-2 for the first time since 1999. That was the year after John Elway retired. So yeah, panic time in Denver. Panic time in Denver. Bears win it on a 53-yard field goal by Eddie Pinheiro. Their kicker. Bears have a kicker. Yay! Wow, good for them. I'm going to be honest with you. The Bears should not have won this game. The Bears defense played great, and they held the Broncos to a combined, 90 yards rushing? Yeah, combined 90-yard rushing between Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman. But then towards the fourth quarter, the Bears defense started to slow down. The altitude was getting to them. And Joe Flacco leads a touchdown drive with Emmanuel Sanders, scores a touchdown, and Vic Fangio, their head coach, correctly decides to go for 2. But as they're lining up, penalties called on the Broncos, so they decide to kick a field goal. Well, they kick the field goal to tie the game. Penalties called on the Bears. So now the Broncos line up for the 2-point conversion because it's been moved back to where they can get it. They get the 2-point conversion to Emmanuel Sanders with 34 seconds left. 34 or 33 seconds left. And you're giving the ball to Mitch Trubisky and you're telling him to drive to get the field goal range. Now, any other team, I think that's a massive win. I don't trust Mitchell Trubisky. And that was being proved early in that drive. He was not getting anything until he got hit by Bradley Chubb and got called for roughing the passer. Bradley Chubb got called for roughing the passer on by placing his weight on Trubisky. And if you go back and watch the play, it's a BS call that should not have happened. And I really think it impacted the outcome of this game. Because it moved the Bears further downfield. And on 4th and 15 for the Bears, Trubisky is able to climb the pocket and hit a really good pass to Allen Robinson. And Robinson gets down, and Trubisky calls a timeout to set up the 53-yard field goal. But I'm telling you, if that foul is not called on Mitchell Trubisky, I don't think the Bears win this game. I don't. That offense is not good right now. Mitchell Trubisky is not making enough plays for that offense. Trubisky in this game went 16 of 27 for 120 yards. That is his entire stat line. 120 yards. Ty Montgomery went 18 of 26 for 18 rushes for 62 yards and 1 touchdown. Joe Flacco, on the other hand, 35 of 50, 292 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 2 sacks. He had to throw the ball 50 times because they were shutting down the running game. Emmanuel Sanders, like I mentioned, caught a touchdown for the Broncos, went 11 of 98, 1 touchdown. The Bears' defense is for real, and it looks to be close to as good as they were last year. Their offense is not good right now. It is not good. I believe in Matt Nagy to call a good offense. I don't believe in Mitch Trubisky to execute that offense. He needs to really do more. The Bears got absolutely lucky in this game, and the Broncos got screwed in this game. But for the Broncos, they need to step up on defense. I'm going to give you this stat, and you can look it up if you don't believe me. But this is true. The Denver Broncos are the only team in the NFL who do not have a sack so far this season. You heard that correctly. The Denver Broncos, who have Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, and Vic Fangio coaching that defense, do not have a single sack this season. That is why it is panic time in Denver. Not just because they're 0-2, but because their defense is not getting the job done. The Miami Dolphins have more sacks. The New York Giants have more sacks. The New York Jets have more sacks. The Arizona Cardinals have more sacks. The Broncos' defense is not working right now, and I'm not quite sure what the problem is, but they need to figure it out quick, because their season is in danger of being over before it starts. Yeah, they got screwed and they should have won this game, but their defense needs to step up. You had Mitch Trubisky, and you let him make a throw on 4th and 15 to Allen Robinson to win the game. Good for Eddie Pinheiro. It looks like the Chicago kicking misery is over. I just don't believe in that offense. I just don't. If Denver can get a running game going with Royce Freeman and Phillip Lindsay and not make Joe Flacco throw the ball 50 times a game, I think the Broncos defense will be what they wanted. The Broncos offense will be what they want it to be, which is like score 17 points. But that defense needs to be something that can help them. It needs to be. Once again, Bears win this one, 16-14 on a last-second field goal. Moving on to another big game in the NFL, Saints at Rams. Rams win this one 27-9. Rams move on to 2-0. Saints fall to 1-1, but the more important thing, Drew Brees, the Saints quarterback, suffers a torn ligament in his thumb in the second quarter after getting hit in the hand on a pass. He is now out 6 to 8 weeks for the Saints. After we're going to talk about the game first, and we're going to talk about the Saints and their quarterback play. After Drew Brees went out, it just really felt like the Saints were at a loss on offense. Teddy Bridgewater, their backup, comes in. He's the highest paid backup in the NFL for a reason. They want him there for a reason, and he's going to be starting there for the next couple weeks. After Bridgewater came in, he went 17 of 30 for 165 yards, 2 sacks. Alvin Kamara had little to no impact for the Saints offensively. And then it was a field goal kicking affair for much of the first half of the game. There was a really horrific call by the refs when Cam Jordan. I don't know if it was Cam Jordan who got the sack, but Jared Goff fumbles the ball, and Cam Jordan picks it up and is running the other way, but the refs call it dead, even though it was absolutely a fumble, and if they don't call it dead, Cam Jordan scores a touchdown, and it could have changed the momentum of the game. I don't know if the Saints would have won it, but it could have really helped them out, because they didn't score a single touchdown that entire game, but it's just another instance of the refs screwing the Saints for the last 3 games the Saints have played. The NFC Championship game with the blown pass interference call. Monday night with the mishandling of the clock. And now this. I know refs do it all the time in the NFL where a quarterback fumbles and they should just let the play go, but they don't. They blow the whistle. I don't know why they do it. I personally think it's because they don't want to run down the field. But it does seem like every time the Saints are playing in a big game, the refs are doing something stupid. It does feel like that. It really does. And I know the Saints are frustrated with it. Cam Jordan, who would have scored a touchdown on that play, referred to the refs as Foot Locker at the end of the game. A very humorous joke. But going back to the Saints offense, they were just lost the entire game. And in the second half, the Rams were able to make adjustments and start finding the end zone more frequently. There was that massive Cooper Kupp touchdown in the fourth quarter that really put the game out of reach. He looked phenomenal on that touchdown run. He really did. He does not look like a guy who tore his ACL last year. He looked phenomenal on that run. If he can stay healthy and stay productive, the Rams are looking scary. Right now, the Rams are the kings of the NFC with the Saints out. I'm still going to ride with the Saints being a Super Bowl team until they prove me otherwise. We're going to see how this next 6 to 8 week period goes with Bridgewater, but right now, the Rams are kings of the NFC, and there's a power vacuum. Like I mentioned way at the beginning of this podcast, with the Saints now taking a step back, who's going to fill that number 2 spot in the NFC? Is it the Cowboys? I mean, who else is there? Eagles? Falcons? Packers? Anybody real come to mind? For Goff, he finished this game 19 of 28, 283 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 sacks, and a fumble, as we mentioned earlier. Gurley had a pretty good game. 16 rushes, 63 yards, and a touchdown. And Cooper Kupp, 5 catches, 120 yards. Right now, Rams are for real. But focusing on the Saints for a second, I just said they're out. Drew Brees is out 6 to 8 games. So I want to take a quick second and really look at the Saints' next 6 games. Are you ready for this? These are the next 6 games that follows. They got to go to Seattle, at Seattle, week 3. Home game versus Dallas. Home game versus the Bucks. At Jacksonville Jags. At Chicago Bears. Then a home game versus the Cardinals. My initial gut reaction reading that for this team, I thought the Saints go 4-2. Lose at Seattle, lose to Dallas, win the next 4. And then after that Cardinals game, week 9, that's the Saints' bye. So that's another week to really recoup. And then week 10 versus the Falcons is, I think, when Drew Brees could come back. So if the Saints go 4-2 or heck, even 3-3, I think that's a big win for this team right now. Or they could go 0-6 and have Drew Brees basically come back onto a team that's 1-7 and tell him, hey, I know you're recovering from a jacked up thumb. Win out for us, because that's what you're going to need to do to basically get us a wild card. I have faith in the Saints team. If the Saints team is good enough to go to the Super Bowl with Drew Brees, I don't think it's suddenly bad enough to just not win a single game without him. I'm not ready to hit the panic button on the Saints just yet, but I think they can manage without Drew Brees. I think they'll survive. They'll keep afloat with Teddy Bridgewater. Remember, Teddy Bridgewater was a solid starter a couple of years ago before that horrific knee injury. He took the Vikings to the playoffs, and after he got the leg hurt, he'd been riding the bench for a while, but there's a reason why Sean Payton wants him in New Orleans. He's been there for a while, he understands the system, and if you give him a week to prepare, I think he'll look good. He just has to get back to, getting in starter shape. So once again, Rams win this one 27-9, and Drew Brees out 6 to 8 weeks with a torn ligament in his thumb. Teddy Bridgewater will take over. And we'll see where the Saints go from here. Moving on to the Sunday night football game, Eagles and Falcons. Falcons win a showstopper of a game, 24-20. Falcons improved to 1-1. Eagles fall to 1-1. The Falcons won in on a 54-yard touchdown pass to Julio with 2:20 left in the game. As I remember correctly, it was on 4th down too. Ryan hits Julio, who gets busted free on a block from an offensive lineman who sprinted across the field to make the block, and Julio takes it to the house, and then the Eagles get it back, get it all the way to the Falcons' red zone, and just can't convert on 4th down. For whatever reason, Ertz just doesn't extend on a crucial 4th down catch. I really think if he fully extends, he gets that 1st down. But he just didn't, and the Eagles lose as a result. And that game just felt like one massive exorcism for the Falcons. Remember the last 2 times they played this team? It came down to a 4th and goal and Julio unable to make the catch. Either it slipped through his hands like it did in the playoffs, or he's ruled out of bounds like it was last season. But think about it. This time, Julio makes the game-winning touchdown catch. And this time the Eagles can't convert on 4th down in the Falcons' red zone. It just felt like one massive exorcism to finally get rid of this Eagle demon that's been haunting the Falcons the last 2 years. Neither QB played good. Ryan finished with 27 of 43 for 320 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks, and a sack. Carson Wentz finished 25 of 43, 231 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, 3 sacks. I got a question for the Eagles. Are they just a slow team? Is this just going to be one of the years where the Eagles are just a team that is slow in the first half and then just really kicks it on in the second half? Because it happened again in this game. They scored only 6 points in the first half. Now, that could be more attributed to what was happening with the Eagles. They had players dropping like flies. Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey were injured early in the game. Their tight end, Dallas Goedert, apparently got hurt in pregame warmups, and he was out, which left them only Ertz. They had a defensive tackle, Timmy Jernigan, break his foot, out for a month. And Carson Wentz was hurt too. He took some really big shots to the ribcage, and he was hurting. There were a couple of times when Josh McCown had to come in and play quarterback for that team. And there really hasn't been much talk about how hurt Wentz is. We're going to see that going forward, but he's hurt. But he made some big-time plays in the second half. The touchdown run where he extended the score was kind of scary because it was reminiscent of how he tore his ACL 2 years ago. And that big-time throw to Nelson Aguilar to get them into field goal range, get them into the red zone on the final drive, was massive by Wentz. And I'm telling you, Nelson Aguilar had a touchdown. He had a second touchdown in that fourth quarter. It was right after the Falcons take the lead with the Julio Jones touchdown, and he has Aguilar sprinting down the sideline, And if Aguilar catches it in stride, he's going to go to the end zone and score. But I think Aguilar got a bit greedy. He started to look ahead to see where the safety was, and he dropped it as a result. The Eagles could have won that game if Aguilar goes into the end zone right there. They really could have. Speaking of Aguilar, since he was the main weapon for most of the night for Philadelphia, 8 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown. Should have been 2. But in contrast, Julio got redemption against this team and shows he's worth every dang penny that the Falcons gave him earlier a couple weeks ago. 5 catches, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Calvin Ridley, the number 2 wide receiver, 8 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. The Falcons felt like they were playing inspired ball. It felt like they were in a do-or-die mode only in week 2, which was odd. And I said it on the podcast last week that Falcons really need to win this game. And I felt I was going out on the limb a little bit, but the closer we got to Sunday Night Football, the more I heard other people saying it. And it felt like the Falcons knew that. And they played like it. And defense came out strong at first, but then in the second half it just became an offensive slugfest. And the Falcons come out on top, go to 1-1, Eagles 1-1. The time is right now for Atlanta. Atlanta could make up some serious ground in this division with Drew Brees out, and we don't know what's up with Cam Newton, and we know Tampa Bay is wishy-washy with Jameis Winston. Right now, the time is right for Atlanta. They could strike while the iron's hot and just rip off a couple games and start to build an insurmountable lead in this division. Everybody's 1-1 right now in that division, except for Carolina, who's 0-2. So the field is still right there for Atlanta. They just got to take it. As for the Eagles, we're going to keep an eye on all their injuries. We'll see who plays next week. We'll talk about that in the Friday preview show. We're going to keep an eye on Carson Wentz because I'm telling you, he did not look okay in that second half. He looked like those ribs were really bothering him. Once again, Falcons win a Sunday night showstopper 24-20. And moving on to the last game, Browns and Jets from Monday night. Oh my gosh. Oh. Browns win this one 23-3. Browns improve to 1-1. Jets fall to 0-2. And it feels like the Jets season is emphatically over at this point. Early in the game, Trevor Siemian, I think it was around the second quarter, Trevor Siemian gets rolled up, the current Jets quarterback, because, their starter got mono, probably from a trip to Makeout Point, who knows. So Trevor Siemian was the starter in this game. He gets hit by Myles Garrett, and his ankle gets rolled up in one of the ugliest injuries you've seen so far this season. And his season, as we were recording this podcast, the news has come in that Trevor Siemian is now done for the year in New York. And who comes in to replace him but Luke Falk, the third-string quarterback. And Luke Falk, he did okay. Did okay in relief. 20 of 25 for 198 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did okay. Poor guy. Jets are probably going to try and get somebody to come in and play for him. I hear Colin Kaepernick needs a job. It's not a swipe on him. I'm just saying I think Kaepernick is probably better than Siemian and Luke Falk. I'm just saying. I know Paxton Lynch is working out with the Steelers this morning. If they don't sign him, you could try and get Paxton Lynch, kick some tires on that one. This was just an ugly game. Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator for the Jets, just really was throwing a lot at the Browns early, and it felt like it kept them off balance. Browns were getting a lot of field goal drives, and it was 16-3 at the half. OBJ really shined in his return to MetLife Stadium. He had that 89-yard catch and touchdown run. Finished the night with 6 catches, 161 yards, and a touchdown. Baker Mayfield went 19 of 35 for 325 yards, a touchdown, a pick, and 3 sacks. And we mentioned this last week on the Friday podcast. The Browns didn't have to, be perfect in this game. Just win the daggum game. You can be sloppy, just win the game. Because I said if the Browns go to 0-2, it's going to get volatile. Now they're 1-1. People are going to be better to deal with now. People are going to be happier. I think things are going to be a bit more smoother. There are a lot of kinks to still work out with this team. But the Browns moved to 1-1. And they're going to be a lot happier now. Because I'm telling you, if that thing started out 0-2 with the hype that was surrounding them, it was going to turn ugly fast. For the Jets, on the other hand, it feels like their season is categorically over. The panic button should have been pressed so much last week that it's broken. The Jets need like a new panic button. You're down to Luke Falk as your starter. And I just don't know with the Jets. I really thought they could have been a team that won 8 games. But now it's just injuries have just taken them way out of contention for everything. And it feels like their season's over 2 weeks into the season. I did want to mention this because I heard about this right before the podcast started. Jamal Adams, the safety for the Jets. Apparently there's a bit of a controversy with him on social media. He apparently had the Jets in his bio on either Instagram or Twitter, and now they're gone. They're just not there anymore in his bio. And he was asked about it, and he said they were never in his bio to begin with, even though there's photos of that being there. So a bit of contention in New York with their star safety, Jamal Adams. It remains to be seen. Once again, Browns win this one 23-3. Browns improved to 1-1, Jets to 0-2. And that's it for the Week 2 recap. We really covered a lot. Once again, for panic button teams, Jets should be panicking. Saints shouldn't be panicking yet. Broncos should panic. Denver should absolutely be panicking. The Bears offense, I feel like, should be panicking. Washington should panic. Steelers should panic. Dolphins, I don't know if people care enough about that team to panic. Giants should panic. And that's about it. Yeah. Those teams should panic. That was a bit rougher than I thought it would be. I did kind of zone out there towards the end and forgot to say which teams should panic and which one shouldn't. So, we got through the entire Week 2 Week 2 recap. Now we're just going to quickly do, because we're approaching an hour and a half here. Told you we could probably go long today. We're going to get a quick preview for the Thursday night game. Titans at Jags. This is usually the type of game we get on Thursday nights. Frequent flyers like the Titans, Jags, Jets, Bills, stuff like that is usually the teams we've been getting. As we mentioned earlier, the Titans are such a week-to-week team offensively. You just don't know what you're going to get. Their reliance on Derrick Henry is a problem. Marcus Mariota needs to do more and step up more for that team. But their defense is rock solid, and it's good. And I think that's going to be a major factor in this game against Gardner Minshew, who's really just trying to keep them afloat, and Leonard Fournette in Jacksonville, who I really think this could be Fournette's last year. He needs to show more. He absolutely needs to show more for that team. And it just feels like the wheels are falling off the bus in Jacksonville. I really think this Jalen Ramsey stuff might expose more in that locker room. That maybe Doug Marrone isn't the most well-liked individual in that locker room, their head coach. Because remember, Doug Marrone is the guy, he used to be the Bills head coach before he was the Jacksonville head coach, and he told the Bills team that he was leaving via text message. There's no way you can make it, leave amicably with a text message. Hey guys, I'm out. Peace. There's no way. So I'm really, part of me thinks that this Jalen Ramsey stuff might expose that some players maybe aren't on the best terms with Doug Marrone. And it just feels like the wheels are completely falling off the bus in Jacksonville. And if you're a Jags fan, you should probably be panicking right now. Especially if your team starts out 0-3. And this is a home game, and I said last week that I usually take the home teams on Thursday Night Football. I'm not doing that this time. I think the Titans win this one. I think their defense is going to overwhelm Jacksonville. And I think Mariota does okay on the Thursday night. Like I said, week to week. And last week they had a bad game. This week they'll have a good one. So I've got the Titans winning this one. All right, that wraps up for the NFLandU podcast for September 17th. Next time we talk, it'll be Friday, either early afternoon or early morning after the Thursday night game. We're going to recap Titans-Jags on Thursday night, any news that's happened since today, and then we'll preview the rest of Week 3. All right, thanks everybody for hanging in there. I know it was a long one today, but thanks for hanging out, and have a good day.